and welcome to episode number 2 of Hand Engraving Design Simplified. This is entitled Dots Make Lines. We're in the very first grade of our Learning to See elementary school. To begin, let's look at a little clip from an interesting Photoshop video. The principle that dots make lines is very fundamental to our designing. Here we watch how a line begins to appear. Do we notice the power of the dots? A line begins to appear as we perceive information coming from the dots. This phenomenon just confirms that a dot is not just a dot. Without a doubt, the dot is EFV, energy, frequency, and vibration. So there we go. Let's capitalize on EFV in all of our designing. Let's watch our video again and explain what the thought process is to place the dots. The white square is our canvas. It's in this area we will place our design. The design intent is to make one scroll backbone line starting at the bottom and continuing clockwise. It is to just touch, that is just kiss, the left, top, and right side of the borders. So we will place dots approximately where they will go. Since a scroll backbone line is a spiral, we will begin to place additional dots at midway places. Then we make more dots to continue developing our backbone line. Some dots will need to be moved. The purpose is to make the backbone line pleasing. Moving dots and making the backbone line more pleasing is the evaluation and correction process we will study in episode 10 of this series. As we progress here, we see that a line is becoming more and more predominant. If we were to continue, a complete line would be developed. This demonstrates the EFV power of dots. They have energy, frequency, and vibration. Because of their power, it is very important for us to know how dots work in many situations. The terms dot and point will be used interchangeably. We perceive a line through the power that dots have, their energy, frequency, and vibration. We can sense a straight line, or dots can show us something else. For a straight line, a start point and a stop point will make the line. Some of these straight border lines have red dots for start and stop points. We will study and learn asking lines to start and stop in a later episode. Next, we will learn about arcs and curves. We will define each one differently due to the ways that we will use them in our designing. For our purposes, an arc is a continuous portion of a circle. Each end that we see of the arc will continue. Eventually, the arc will continue forming the circle. A curve is a continuous portion of a bent line that does not continue into a circle. Let's gain knowledge of arcs more in depth. Arcs are made also by points. To learn how this works very simply, an arc can be seen most easily when we receive the EFV from 3 points. For an arc, point C must always be the same distance from point A and from point B. A continuous arc from point A through point C to point B will show us how large the circle will be. And as we just saw, this arc will continue. It will continue in its forming of a circle. We can determine the size of a circle as follows. Connect point A and point B. Divide this line in half and call that point D. Now we draw a line from point C to point D. This line is perpendicular to line AB. Paying attention to line CD, the shorter the line from point C to point D gets, the larger the circle diameter will get. Let's look at what happens with an arc continuing itself when the line from C to D gets longer. It's very interesting what happens. When line CD increases in length to where it's equal in length to line AD and equal in length to line DB, then all three are equal and they become the radii forming their circle. And obviously, line AB becomes the diameter of the circle. Even more interesting is when our line CD gets longer, then our figure becomes an ellipse. All of this helps us to more fully learn how arcs work for us. Arcs are important for our designs as they emit great EFB. Next, let's learn about curves more in depth. Here we see how dots make curves in a scroll backbone design. Each section of a scroll backbone is not an arc. Please know that for our purposes, a curve is not an arc. In our designing, we will differentiate between the two. This backbone is just a drawing example and would take a lot of corrections before it would be a pleasing backbone line. An arc is part of a circle. It has a constant radius by definition. A curve is continuously changing. We will go into this more deeply in a later episode. Looking more deeply into how a curve works, 2 points can make a curve if we will visualize the EFV of it, or we could visualize the curve EFV to look like this. If we have 3 points with their emitted EFV, the curve becomes easier to position. And of course, more dots really helps. The EFV of these dots tell a lot more. If we have a multitude of dots giving us a very large amount of EFV, we almost don't even need a continuous line. We have just witnessed what power EFV has in helping us in our design work. To make a beauty line, the dots EFV would work like this. Let's say we want to start here, and we would like for it to end here. We want the larger radius part to be on the lower end, and let's have the upper end, the smaller radius portion. We now would be able to use the EFV points to make this beauty line. We have examined how dots make 4 major types of lines in our design work: the straight line, the arc, the curve, and the beauty line. Just because we now know the many aspects of how dots make lines, it doesn't mean that we absolutely have to put dots down in our design first before we can make our lines. As we get more and more competent, we will just envision where our essential dots are and make our actual lines through them. And finally, we will get so experienced and have mastered drawing our lines that we may not even think about our dots and what they have given us in our development. But there are exceptions. We will continue to use dots for our start and stop points, as well as important and essential points in between. Dots have wonderful EFE power to give us. We just need to recognize and use it. We've now concluded episode number 2, Dots Make Lines. Please study all episodes in order. Number 3 is next in learning to see. It is knowing lines and deals with straight lines, arcs, and curves. Thank you and hope to see you there.